go around for the CAB to come up with 3 members for you guys to approve is going to be next to impossible. And so I think that's something that you guys got to look at going forward. What's going to happen when they come in July and they can't find anybody at the local level to be on this board? Then it's going to come back to you guys in more of a panic situation. We got an arbitration process that has to occur. There's no panel there, and then you guys are going to have to decide at that point. It would probably be a lot better for you to cross that bridge right now or within the next year before the next panel has to be seated. Possible solutions to the elk incentive process. I think the Wildlife Commission can act as the arbitration panel, much like you do with license revocations. And I brought this up to our Elko County CAB meeting, and I went back and talked to Commissioner Morai, and he said that if he had a gun, he would have shot me right there. He wasn't too excited about that idea. I think it's possible that the existing damage committee can act as the arbitration panel. I also think that the commission can create a new subcommittee at the commission level that is specific to a elk arbitration process, and then that panel would be a sitting panel for every county. Every county wouldn't have to have a specific arbitration panel. Again, NRS states that it doesn't have to be no mention of it having to be at the local level. Okay, so based on this, I really don't want to leave you with the impression that the elk incentive program is broken. In fact, I think it's just the opposite. We have 42 landowners that are enrolled in the program, and we've only gone to arbitration with only 3 of them in the last 14 years. And one of those, it was actually the guy really didn't understand what the process was, and actually afterwards told us that he was a little bit confused and probably would have never gone to arbitration. So really just two landowners out of 42. The program, in most cases, really has resulted in better communication and relationships between the landowner and the biologist, and it has resulted in my opinion, in a lot more tolerance to elk being on both private and public lands by private landowners. So I really do think it's been a good program, and in my opinion, I don't want to see the arbitration process drag the entire program down, which I think 4 or 5 years from now, there's possibilities of that happening. So I guess in summary, I guess that we're hoping that a new arbitration process can be implemented that is more open and transparent, which will result in less animosity. And I think we believe that arbitration at the commission level will provide structure to the process, will encourage accountability, and will alleviate less stress on the local citizens. Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Young?
Yeah, I got a couple. Ken, what's your opinion on how to address an issue that Mike, I think, brought up earlier, and this bothers me, of how we could possibly solve that, and that is the professional hunter, professional guide that gets their hands on these tags. They are not Nevadans in most cases. There are a few what I'll call professional guides that do live in Nevada that have unlimited time on their hands, have guiding licenses, and they either have personal relationships with certain landowners or whatnot and buy these tags and sell them at exorbitant prices. And then it becomes what I call a class system dysfunction that I truly believe what I think one of the ladies said today, that wildlife belongs to the people of the state of Nevada, and I believe that the person that puts in for an elk tag, and I've never been able to draw an elk tag in Nevada, I'll claim that, but I have had the opportunity to buy landowner tags a couple times, and actually got one given to me once, and buying them from ranchers that I thought were good guys, but hell, very exorbitant prices. Paying $6,000 for a mule deer tag in Area 13, I didn't necessarily want to do that because I've been hunting there all my life, but I can't draw that tag very often. So how do we fix that? And particularly the out-of-state person that comes here that happens to be wealthy, that is purely a trophy hunter, because we have a few trophies. We don't have a huge elk population, but we got some big elk. And how do we keep those tags out of their hands and allow real Nevadans that are putting in a process to possibly get lucky and draw one of those tags? Or kill one of those elk.
And that's so broader, and I mean, I'll defer that to Tony because
if there's one thing as a commissioner, I'd like to fix that. I don't believe it's right. So.
I guess I would just say I think that it's a byproduct of the process, but it's no different than a real estate agent putting a home seller in contact with a home buyer. They're providing a service, and if it were maybe simplified to where those private landowners had a pool of people who expressed an interest, and but I don't know how you can simplify that process, and we certainly don't want to infringe upon private landowners' right to exercise any way they want to choose to sell that tag. They should be able to, but I think because they may not have the ready resources or the time to contact hunters, or the hunters don't know how to get a hold of them, they're relying on that service that middleman, which is the guide, is providing. And I don't know how we could streamline that or simplify it.
I agree with you, Tony. However, that the difference between a house and an elk are vast. That elk is a wildlife resource that's precious and belongs to all of us. It's not a house that was built by some developer. And I don't know, elimination of that and paying the landowner actual dollars in real, valuable, instead of having that exorbitant increase, which only a few people in society can afford, is what bothers me. And I'd like to keep those out of their hands. I don't believe that that's right. I don't believe it's fair to the citizens of Nevada, particularly the hunting citizens of Nevada, that year after year put in for an elk tag, and they don't draw. But if they happen to be wealthy and they could outbid some guy from Arizona, they could go kill a once-in-a-lifetime elk.
I guess the model is that if by allowing that to happen, you end up with greater tolerance and more elk on the landscape and more opportunity for everybody in the long run, then it's justified.
Mike, before I let you get started, I just want to emphasize the topic of this is elk arbitration issues. It's not, so just make sure that we stay within the topic that we're on.
I'm just looking at the it says an overview of private land elk programs and discussion of the issues and problems encountered, because the title is more broad than the actual agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I made my comments, and I would just reiterate that I would encourage the department and the commission to explore options, and just have a discussion and see if there's a better way to do distribution of those tags and have the money go where it was intended. And that was my point. It may not necessarily keep the tags out of the hands of the very, very wealthy or whatever, but it's the middleman getting money that really, really bothers me. And so that I made that comment in memorandums, and I'll just reiterate it.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Commissioner Lane?
I guess my question would be, it doesn't appear that the arbitration happens very often, but it seems to me that if you bring it to the problem I have with bringing it to the commission level is that you've kind of removed it from the local level where everyone understands what the issues are. And so that's my concern, and how as we move around, are you going to wait until we're close to that locality to have that arbitration? It sounds like you don't want to do that because you've got to make those decisions fairly quickly. So I guess I would like to see some other local options. I mean, in Southern Nevada, we have arbitration. You actually pay for arbitration that's available, and I don't know if that's available otherwise, elsewhere, but that might be something that could be explored. It seems to me if you've got those services available, to take advantage of those services as opposed to trying to set up a citizen arbitration board.
Commissioner McNinch.
And, you know, that kind of crossed my mind too, Karen, but I think part of the problem is that there's a perceived lack of transparency. Is that what I'm hearing, Ken? And typically when you have that arbitration, that hired arbitrator, you know, typically it's done in a closed room somewhere, and that doesn't really address that particular issue. So you got the fact that you got local people that are making tough decisions with people that they have to live with afterwards, causing one problem, and then there's a lack of transparency on the other hand. So we've got a couple issues that we're addressing. Is that
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, and I don't know that there's a lot of ways around. You know, if you have an arbitration panel made up of local people, even though I do agree that it's nice to have them understanding the situation, I don't know that you can resolve that unless you get away and get it out of that local community. I don't. So, you know, as much as I hate to say it, and I'm kind of interested to hear what Pete has to say, but, you know, the default in my mind would certainly be bringing it back to the commission here. I know it's not as timely as it would be otherwise, but I would rather see that happen than have the system break down because of something like that. So,
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems like the situation and I had a discussion with Ken about it at the CAB meeting, like he referenced, and in talking to some of the locals since that time, is that they don't want to lose the ability to have local people making the decisions. However, it seems like in this situation, you guys, as far as NDOW is concerned, it's primarily with two landowners, and it's repeated.
Right. It's
For whatever reasons, and I'm not saying one way or another, you guys have kind of locked horns, and you can't come up with a decision as to how to allocate the tags between you and the landowner.
Yeah, I mean, the way the process works is we do an evaluation on a year-round basis, and we go through the formula, and then every year we put it out there. What we can't get into in this process is a make deal type process. You know, we'll make a deal with you, because as soon as we get making a deal with one landowner, it's unfair to every other landowner that's out there. I think the difference of local, why I don't think it necessarily should go to local, is you're looking at information that NDOW is providing and information that the landowner is providing. And to me, even if it's away from the local level, I think people can look at it at a more objective point of view of looking, okay, here's the data here, here's the data here. How does this data line up? To whereas anywhere on a local standpoint, I think there's some biases one way or the other on it. And I really do think that at the commission level, it would be a lot more objective. And I think one way that you could get around it, some of the issues that were there, is maybe in the June meeting, that's usually in a rural situation anyway, is have your all arbitrations there. And that way the landowners always know that's going to be arbitrated at that point in time. So if it was associated with the commission one way or the other, having it in June, then everybody knows the game that's going forward, and it's somewhat local in the fact that it's going to be at a local level and people can, you know, have some input at that point.
And by the time that you get, I guess my question is, I'm sure that you guys have looked at, before you go to the arbitration, you've looked at the option of fencing the entire property in question, or wherever the problem is. That an option, or the expense is too great to fence the two landowners that you can't come to an agreement with?
Yeah,
fence all of that property that could be a problem and try to eliminate it?
Yeah, it's parcels scattered all over the Cherry Creek Range, for example, is all these individual parcels. And the fact is the landowner wouldn't want it fenced, and You know, if it was specific to fields, we could fence it and solve the problem like we do in the elk damage. But the incentive tag program, very little is there an opportunity to fence it, because it's almost always rangeland involved. And if we're fencing it for elk, then we're impeding migration and everything for a whole host of other wildlife, and then also impeding it for the use of that rancher. And it's almost never an option to put fence on for the elk incentive.
And I guess a question, and I don't really want to get too much into the specifics, but what, as far as the significance, my interest is the significance of it. How many tags are we talking?
Well, it's only resulted in 2 extra tags, the whole arbitration process. And so the number of tags is significant, and our issue is not at all with the tags. We can care less about what the end result is. What we're concerned is about the process, and we're really concerned about the process and the impact it has to the local people that are getting there. And then I'll be honest with you, is that if we continue to go to you have one landowner that we say 2 tags, we come in and say, okay, you qualify for 2 tags. Now he comes in and says that he wants 4 tags, knowing that there's going to be a compromise to 3 tags, because that's the easiest way. I mean, when you go to it, you usually get a compromise. Then why wouldn't the people, all the ranchers that are playing by the book, they're going to catch on too. They're sitting there going, we're playing by the book, and here's a rancher here that's going to arbitration every year and getting an extra tag. Why wouldn't those other 42 ranchers come in and say, okay, you're giving us 4 tags, we want 6 tags to get an extra tag? $10,000 is a lot of motivation to do that. So in my mind, we're really punishing 40 other landowners that are playing the game properly by allowing arbitration to be so easily, and basically having a bully mentality within this arbitration process to get additional tags.
Commissioner Young and then Commissioner Macbeth.
Ken, you mentioned one landowner doesn't want his land fenced. Are you saying he's gaming the system simply to sell this tag? He's not a real rancher that needs the money. I mean, if he had any damage, he doesn't want it fenced simply so he gets that landowner tag.
It's just the impracticability. I can't think of a single incentive tag situation where it's practical to fence land. I would say that the minimum property that we're giving incentive tags on is probably 2,000 acres. And so, yeah. And so if it's just one isolated parcel, they're not going to be able to qualify for incentive tags. And so they're probably going to go damage thing. And then that's where we would do the fencing or the payments.
And is this required by law that we compensate them by incentive tags?
No, it's a process. It's a cooperative program. They apply to be entered into this program, and then we work with them to see if they have enough elk on their property to qualify. And a lot of times they do not. They'll enter into it, and we'll just say.
So my point is, yeah, if it's not in law, could the theory be that to the rancher or the landowner, that's the cost of doing business? You know, elk and wildlife are going to roam on your land, and are we giving them something that isn't required by law?
Well, I think if they qualify for the elk program to be into the elk incentive program, and then we go through due diligence with them throughout the year, and we find that they have enough elk to qualify, then I do think that we are under legal obligation to do our best job to provide them those tags. And then the arbitration panel then comes in to where we go through a process and we say, this is how many tags that we think you have based on what we have, and they go, no, the process was all messed up with what you guys used. And that's usually what it is did NDOW go through the right process and use their information and everything? That's usually where the rub is.
Commissioner Macbeth.
Thank you. On the 2 cases, on the 2 landowners, what is the gist of the dispute? What is the difference, you know, in positions that you're dealing with? I need to understand, why there isn't a meeting of the minds between these two parties, and to kind of evaluate whether, because in an arbitration process, you got two sides and they've got a disagreement. So I'm kind of curious as to what is the specific issue that you're dealing with.
Well, it all comes down to in a nutshell is that like I say, he's probably, this one particular landowner's probably got 40 to 50 parcels spread out over the mountain, and they're relatively small parcels that we're looking at. And the issue is, he claims that there's more elk use than we document out there. And it's as simple as that. He comes in and says, there's 400 elk using it. We go out there and say that there's 200 elk using it. That's the process. Because we know we're going to arbitration on a yearly basis, then we put a lot more resources looking at elk use on all these parcels, as opposed to a lot of the others, and then we get accused then of strong arming and picking on him specifically. So I think it's always going to be. I think he's learned the process here, and like I say, there's $10,000 is a lot of motivation for coming driving 3 hours into town and spending an hour of his time arguing. So I don't know. Like I say, 40% of the time it works pretty darn well. But I think that 2%. I think White Pine County is going to be a major issue going forward, and I think that one way or the other that you need to deal with it, because I really think that you're going to have a tough time finding an arbitration board in White Pine County next year at this time.
Any other commission comments or questions? Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken, on these arbitrations, how long are they usually lasting? I mean, is this an all-day process?
No,
I mean,
they're actually probably an hour. I mean, it's really pretty straightforward. We give you the numbers usually of what we find on the parcels, and provide what we've seen in the formula, and then the rancher will usually provide his observations and whatnot. So it really is probably 2 hours at the most. So it really isn't a very long process.
I guess the reason I'm asking is if this is something we're going to bring in front of the commission, I don't want to see something that adds 2 days to our commission meeting in June. So that's where that question came from.
Commissioner McNinch.
So Ken, what is the default if we don't have an arbitration panel in place in White Pine this time next year?
That's a really good question. I mean, because it says the commission will appoint a panel, and so at that point in time, I mean, I think that the White Pine County, Shane, I think, has resigned from the county game board and whatnot. So now you're going to have another guy that's in there, and if he doesn't have the time to really pound the pavement like Shane did on this, I mean, basically, when it says you go to a local committee, then it says the cab will bring you three names. So I'm not really sure what the default would be.
I think you're going to run out of 3 names because everybody who's been on it before tells everybody how much fun it is, and everybody raises their hand to get on it.
Exactly.
Commissioner Bliss.
Ken, a real quick question. When there's this type of controversy and it's happening over and over again, do you set up an agreed time frame when you guys do your surveys? So, like, you get with the landowner and say, these are dates. What dates do you think you have the most elk use on? And try to schedule with that person and say, okay, we're going to do our surveys. You're more than welcome to come, whatever. And then it takes.
Well, we even go beyond that, because we send a letter out to them and constantly reiterate, any time that you see significant elk use on these parcels, let us know, and we will be out there the next day, whether even if it's myself or I have to send another biologist out there. That's how important it is for us to get out there. We normally don't get that type of cooperation, but we do let them know when we're going to be out there. And again, we always emphasize, like I say, most of the other 40 landowners, it's really smooth that they know that we'll pretty much use standard numbers unless they'll give us a call and go, there's 400 elk that showed up here. Can you come out there? And we'll come out there and do it. In this one, we say, please let us know when these elk are on the land, and we'll be out there. And it doesn't happen very often.
So, Ken, is there a need to, you know how right there in the Ruby Valley area, where we're next to the Rubies, where we're keeping that as elk-free as possible? Or is this a situation we're looking at there? Is it even practical? Is it something that we need to consider here to just alleviate elk in the neighborhood? It's not practical? I wouldn't imagine that it is.
It would be. I mean, you'd be talking about alleviating the entire Area 12 elk herd.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, just for clarification, Ken, when you say it lacks transparency, are you referring to the process by which the verification occurs? It's different than counting 50 deer or antelope on an irrigated field. It's more subjective in administering the formula. Is that
no, I don't. When I say it lacks transparency, I'm talking more of the arbitration process. There's no minutes. There's no public. There's no, you don't have 20 people, holding us to accountability. So I think the real transparency part is the process of the arbitration. Because we oftentimes, probably half the time, the landowner at the end of the year will come in and talk to the biologist, and they'll go over all the numbers they've seen, and then come to some type of agreement there. And it's usually, the biologist will go through it month by month and tell them what they've seen and why they're getting the numbers that they are.
Commissioner McNinch.
Well, I'm taking more shots at this than I should probably, but it really does boil down to, as much as I'd like to see that an arbitration panel work, it really is our problem. And if we're all in on the process, then I think that we need to establish a default, which should be with us, just to make sure that net's in place, or that the understanding's there, so that moving forward, that we don't have to worry about at least a default position. And into the interim, I would even go so far as to say we ought to just take some action to bring it back here. And I agree with the time, but it's our problem, and we should deal with it. And so whatever it would take to bring that back and bring it back to the board. And I understand Pete's concerns and respect those, but until we can figure out another way to do it, maybe we ought to, I think it would be in our best interest to establish that.
Mr. Newton, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Well, just on that last point, in terms of what would be necessary, you currently have a regulation in place that outlines how the arbitrations panels are set up. So if you wanted to change that, or you wanted to involve the commission or anything along that line, you would need to open a regulatory docket to deal with 502.42283. That's the proper process.
And I'll leave that to a future chairman and a future commission to deal with. Anybody else have anything?
Can I make one more comment to
Yes.
Commissioner Morai's concern? One of the things that we've been accused of from the landowner is the process being broken. And to me, that if the process is more transparent to the commission and stuff, and if it really is broken, and if NDOW really is selecting out a certain user groups, then there's a lot more transparency on that end also, and then we could be more held accountable if we actually are denying tags to a certain industry or a certain individual, and from his standpoint, I think it also then would bring a lot more accountability from our standpoint. So I think that would go both ways.
Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioner McNitch, and it appears as though where this is an informational item, it just needs to come back as a action item for the commission to make a decision on which way we want to go on this.
Commissioner Morey.
And I just want to let you know, Ken, that I appreciate the fact that you're looking forward onto the horizon, that maybe there is an issue that could become bigger, and being proactive in your approach to it. And I understand the situation. I guess what I hate to see is that I don't want, you have an extremely successful program. In my opinion, you guys have been doing an excellent job with it. And you can see by the graph that you showed that there are more people all the time that are participating in it. And so I guess I just hate to see a negative consequence from a couple of issues. And I think we do need to look at it and try to resolve it. Like Dave was saying, that maybe we need the next step. If the arbitration panel, maybe go to the arbitration panel, still try to keep that part of it. And if the CAB is unsuccessful at getting anybody to serve on that panel, then, and the landowner would have to know that also, that, okay, you take your chances at the arbitration panel, and if the panel can't be provided for, then the next step is, whether it's the commission or whatever we decide.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, it's 10 after 12. Let's take lunch till 1:30, and then we'll come back and we'll go to activity report.